So, here's what you should see when you log in. This is a short week. I have a wrestling meet today. I have academic lunch all week. So that means I don't even get a lunch break. I am hyped. I'm hyped at the wrestlers in a bad way. No. So, you will notice when you look at what's coming up this week on the bottom right corner, you only have one thing you're responsible for.
Congress of Vienna.
Debrief. That is not until Thursday. Here's the deal. If you find yourself not here Thursday, you can go to the calendar, look at what we did. There's a link to it. There will be a video when it gets to Thursday and I can record it. We will not have this class Friday or next Monday because it's a 4-day weekend for you.
Teacher in service.
No, not teacher in service.
On Friday, it's
So,
Senior night.
no.
Saturday.
Listen, when there's parent-teacher conferences 2 nights this week, then school's off on Friday.
Oh.
So you don't have to come, we don't have to come. That's why. It's not because it's senior night. It's not because it's your birthday. It's because it's parent-teacher conferences.
Wait, is it conferences Tuesday and Thursday?
Well, for you guys, it's Thursday and Friday. Elementary, I think, is Tuesday and Thursday.
What do we have to come up?
I don't know. Honestly, look at the school calendar because it's low on my priority list. Question?
Do we play live or camera?
You play Kemmer on Friday and Lyman on Saturday. How I know that and he doesn't is scary.
It's here.
Both.
I'm gonna be there.
Okay. Here's what we're going to do. If you go to the modules link on the side. Modules. Okay, Napoleon is still on the front page because even though he's going to be exiled, he is the reason we have to do what we're doing this week. He conquered pretty much all of Europe. Now that he's in Elba in 1814, guess what the rest of Europe is going to have to do? Now that Napoleon's booted out and France surrendered.
Wait, when does he need to go to a new place?
Because the British took him on a ship and said, you're staying in Elba until you die.
They have to rebuild.
When does he need to go somewhere else?
He does escape, remember?
Yeah, but I mean, like, what is he, like, for the last time he goes to somewhere that's not...
Because he's in St. Helena the second time he get exiled, which is like right here.
You are not leaving.
Yes.
And if you do, you're going up in Africa.
And we think he had cancer too at that point. Okay?
I mean, like, why didn't he just
So listen, Napoleon's gone. France surrenders. Here's the problem. They had conquered pretty much all of Europe. Do you see the problem?
Who's going to run it?
Exactly. So here's what this week is about. In 1814, all the leaders of European countries are going to send diplomats to Vienna, Austria, for what is known as the Congress of Vienna. Think of it like a giant peace treaty for what to do with Europe now that Napoleon is gone and France surrendered. So, here's how we're going to do this. First thing in this folder is a link that says Congress of Vienna Outline. Open that bad boy up. This is going to require some math, which we'll do in a minute. You are going to be on one of 9 teams. Your team is going to have a checklist today of 9 things to do. Okay? Do not make a copy of this doc yet because you're going to do it in your team. So just be looking at my copy. Okay. Now, ignore the checklist for a second because you don't know what you need to know to do it. Let me explain the background here. Eyes up on my screen. If you look up here at the purple and yellow, this is what Napoleon and France conquered or kicked their butt until they made friends with them, like Austria. He didn't actually control Austria. He made them surrender and sign a deal that says, we'll be nice to you, Napoleon, because you kicked our butt. Okay, same with Prussia. So look at this. He pretty much conquers all of Europe. Do we agree?
Yeah.
With one key exception. Great Britain. Because the elephant could never defeat the whale. We know that from last week. Okay? Here's a scary thing. You go from that to the next year, Napoleon's gone and France surrenders. What do we do with all of this land that's now free from France?
You divide it somehow.
That's our job this week. Okay? So you're going to take on the role of one of 9 different countries. I will show you that in a second. The problem, do you guys see it? What do we do when you go from Napoleon runs the whole show to Napoleon's gone? New countries, little countries. Do we punish France for what they did? Or are we nice to them and make friends? Okay?
I mean, you gotta think about it. You can't just like list the actions of the people that caused that.
We'll get into that. Okay? I'll give you one historical example. Okay? At the height of ancient Rome's power, in about 260 BC, do you guys remember Hannibal and the Carthaginians fighting the Punic Wars against the Romans led by Scipio Africanus? Remember the drunk elephant battle?
Oh, yeah.
Everyone remembers the drunk elephant battle. Okay? Carthage surrendered and lost that second Punic War. Rome made a peace deal with them. Listen. Rome said this, hey Carthage, we won't kill you if you promise to never have an army ever again, never fight back against people who pick on you unless Rome gives you permission, and never go against this treaty. Now here's the problem. That treaty is super, super, super unfair to Carthage. And Rome did that on purpose because they knew the Carthaginians would break it, which they did. Okay, and then here's what Rome says. We gave you a peaceful solution. You didn't follow it. So the Romans go to Carthage. It takes them about a year, but they surround the city. When they capture it, they kill every single man. They enslave and sell into slavery every single woman and child. They burn down the city of Carthage so completely that modern historians aren't even sure where it is, even though it was one of the biggest cities in the ancient world. And then they said they sowed salt into the field so nothing would grow again. That probably didn't happen. Okay? Here's the lesson from that. If your enemy's Carthage or France, option 1, obliterate them. Literally wipe them off the map. Are they a problem anymore? That's one solution that always works. We call that the Roman solution. Okay? Now, if that problem is with your mom or your basketball coach or your English teacher, that is not an option.
Why?
Okay? Because you go to prison.
Well, it's always an option.
Assassinating your English teacher is not a good solution to having a bad grade in English class.
Still an option. It's just
Listen, and it works. It works. The problem goes away, but you create bigger problems for yourself.
still get sweet and crazy.
Okay, so here's what's going to happen. I'm going to put you in a team. You're going to get some instructions. Okay? The point of this week is rather than using our armies to settle our problems, we will use diplomacy. Do you guys know what diplomacy is? What's diplomacy?
Right out you get when you graduate.
That's a diploma. What is diplomacy?
Is it making an agreement to like not fight or like ignore something?
Okay.
It's a thing that
Listen, I'm going to use you as my example. It's really simple. In modern history, which we are right now, you essentially have 2 options of solving any problem you have with another country. Okay, here's option 1. Send in the Marines and blow stuff up. That's called using force, using your military. The United States has been doing that a lot lately, and we're really good at the blowing stuff up part. We're the best in the world, which is why we like to blow stuff up. What we suck at, and the reason they hired me, is because there's another option. Isaac, the guys in suits and ties with the fancy bow tie, instead of sending the Marines to blow up your enemies, you can send guys like him to persuade them, to make a deal with them, because then no one has to die.
What's the fun in that? No one has to die, real.
You tell me that when you get drafted into World War I in 1970.
I can't get drafted because that happened.
There's still a draft.
For World War I?
Yeah, and for Vietnam and the Civil War. And you're going to have to register for the draft when you turn 18.
I thought.
Listen, it's going to change because pretty soon they better have to register for the draft too.
You don't even know, there could be another war and they may have to.
Well, there could be. There will be. Look at American history. There's always another war.
So, there's even a chance that you get drafted.
You get
like,
papitas for like sand.
No. Okay? So here's what diplomacy is. Instead of blowing someone up and dropping bombs on their capital city, you send in guys in suits and ties, and you talk about it. You argue, you discuss, you persuade. So there's no military involved. Why in 1815 would European countries want the guys in suits and ties instead of their armies?
Because they already killed each other.
What's been happening since Napoleon's been around? For 15 years, he's conquering everybody, kicking their butt. They're tired of fighting. They're running out of guys. Okay? So there's no military involved. It's diplomacy. The last thing I'll tell you before I give you your team. Do you guys know that awards assembly at the end of the year when the teachers give their like special awards? As a disclaimer, I always tell classes ahead of time. Do you know what mine are for world history? I have two.
Future 5-star general and future secretary.
Yes. And everyone's like, what does that have to do with anything? Because it's always like, no offense, the English teacher says like, best essay writer. And the science teacher does like, the best chemist. Okay? I have two. Future 5-star general. So someone who, if the United States needs to send the Marines to blow stuff up, because there's a time and a place, who, he's like 1 in 10 in all of our battles.
Yes, and one.
I choose somebody who, through our class, Mr. Nelson,
We didn't finish.
they won.
No.
Yeah, we won.
I choose someone for that award. It has nothing to do with your grade.
You guys lost.
Isaac, let it go.
They laughed.
I choose someone who I would trust to be in charge of our country if we needed to send the Marines button.
Me.
The opposite award, the future Secretary General of the United Nations, is who would be the best smooth talker instead of invading North Korea. Let's say we wanted to make a deal. Who would I want the United States to send to do that?
Me.
Well, we'll see this week.
I'll be like, hey, you want some burritos? I got oh, yeah.
Burritos.
North Koreans, they don't even know what burritos
I
are.
got you some rice.
They don't even,
They know rice.
Chicken
they
and
don't
rice.
even know what food is.
That's true.
They don't.
That actually might be a persuasive strategy with the North Koreans. So, things like this factor into who gets that award. That's the only reason I tell you that. Okay? So here's what we're going to do. We have 9 different teams, and we're going to have to do some math. When you get into a team in a second, I will bring you your instructions from your king. What you need to do when you get into a group is you need to make a shared copy of the Google Doc you have. Within your group, everyone should be able to edit. Is anybody missing today?
Jake Pate and
I feel like somebody else is.
Tristan Pate and Jake.
Okay. He will get added to a team tomorrow when he comes back. Here's your job. With your team, we're going to read your instructions, use this map, and do your checklist of 9 things.
Wait, why do we need the math for?
Map.